Sactown Sports app.
The box I put you in don't come with no release date. That is from Diamador Lenore's Instagram with a couple different flicks and pictures from the game. One of them, as he is lined up across DK Metcalf. They're just down bad. It's just, and you know what? The difference is I feel like even when the Seahawks kind of owned the Niners with the Richard Sherman era and things like that, it still felt like there was more juice to the game, Chris. I don't know. There's just no juice to me with these games. You still think there's some juice?
A little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
Not much. Definitely. I mean, like you said earlier, like it's not like it's Marshawn out there. You don't got Sherm out. Like it's just not the same. It doesn't feel like the stakes have been the same. You know, they always say about the the Warrior King rivalry. You know,
right.
You got to win one to in order for it to be a rivalry, and it just hasn't really felt like the Seahawks have played spoiler to the Niners. Like, I mean, there's with the Rams, there's real playoff back and forth of, hey, the Rams got one on us, we got a couple on the Rams, and the regular season games, they end up being split. Obviously, the Rams just picked up a win over the Niners. It just feels like, the Niners have moved on, and that's kind of what happens sometimes when you have these teams that stay at the top like the Niners have is, your rivals kind of fall off by the wayside. Think about the Warriors. A couple years ago, it was the Rockets, and then, obviously the Cavs too, and then the Grizzlies pop up for a year, and now people want to tell the Warriors that the Kings are their rivals, much like the Niners. It's all these teams pop and go, and if you stay up top, the other teams probably aren't going to stay up there with you. And so I think that's kind of what we're seeing with the Niners is the Niners, they can say, what's the thing that you always tell? They've outgrown the Seahawks. It's just like outgrowing your elementary school friends.
Yes.
You're like, I don't know. I'm into wine now.
Okay. So we have Around the NFL coming up at 12:15. And after that, I want to break down, Chris, we're having fun on a Friday. Let's break down, because I said yesterday on social media, Niners Seahawks are no longer a top 5 rivalry. I want to see where they even fall. So we're going to break down the rivalries. We need your help. That's coming up at 12:30. We want to know who are the top rivalries in the NFL right now. But first, it's time to get into some Kings talk. 2 games this weekend. They go to the Bay tonight. I think Brandon Nunez will be in the building.
Yes, him and Frankie are both going.
They'll both be in the building. My old stomping grounds. Chris and I are going to hang out in Sacramento. Well, not necessarily together, but we'll both be hanging out in Sacramento.
Didn't
and Chris,
have to clarify.
Chris, you asked, well, the people need to know. And Chris, we want to know right now, what are the things that you saw on Wednesday that you want to see again? And what are the things that you saw on Wednesday that you don't want to see again?
For sure. I mean, definitely the first thing is undoubtedly DeMar continuing to look like how he did in that first game. You want him to look as smooth and confident. He probably can't go 6 for 6 again, but if you can get a version of him getting the same shots and, maybe even having a little bit more ownership over the offense, I think that would be great. I mean, you definitely want to see some of those bench guys show out like what they did. Alex Len had a really big game. Boogie Ellis had a big game. Isaac Jones looked really good in some spots as well. I think that's really the main thing. And, first and foremost, actually, before all of that is stay healthy. I mean, that is first and foremost. We read the injury report twice already this week that the Kings are dealing with. They can't have any more of these guys pop up with injuries and maybe miss the start of the season. It's stay healthy and just get a good run in. And, honestly, again, results don't really matter. Wins and losses don't matter in the preseason. It's about comfort. It's about getting these guys into some sort of game shape, and everything else that happens is kind of gravy. But number one thing is stay healthy. Number 2 is I want to see DeMar continue to just look comfortable in this offense and maybe expand his game even a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, the first thing is specifically because you're facing the Warriors again. First thing is let's not have 1,000 threes again. Let's start there for the things that we don't want to see. We don't want to see Jonathan Kuminga. What was he, 4 for 7? We don't want to see Draymond Green. But honestly, as I'm saying that out loud, if that happens, cool. What we don't want to see is Buddy Hield. What was he, 6 for 7 or 7 for 8? 6 for 7. We don't want to see that from Buddy Hield. We don't want to see Brandon Pajemski 2 for 4. We don't want to see DeAnthony Melton, who had a good night as well. Focus on the shooters and get them off their spots. If Jonathan Kuminga has been following Steph around and now all of a sudden he's just going to be a three-point shooter, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that later in the season when it's real deal. But for now, stick to your plan and get the shooters off their spot. That's what I want to see that I did not see on Wednesday. And what I did see and what I want to continue to see is I want to continue to see Keegan Murray make his mark, right? I don't believe Keegan had a 3 in the first game. So get that. It's not a monkey off your back because it's the preseason, but Keegan continue to be aggressive and continue to show. That's the thing, Chris, this whole big 3 conversation that we're having with Sabonis and DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox, what really unlocks a team, and we've seen it with the Boston Celtics, not to necessarily compare the Kings to the Celtics, is you just have to have dudes that scare you all over the floor. And if Keegan Murray can not just be a guy who 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'll throw it to Keegan so he can check up a 3, but no, Keegan might go in and take over a game too, or Keegan has that look in his eye. That's what I want to see from Keegan Murray that I didn't necessarily see. Obviously, there was a lot to diagnose from one game, but I for sure want to see Keegan kind of continue to take that step and that growth in his game. Even though you got DeMar on the floor, Keegan, they're going to be DeMar, DeRozan, and Sabonis. That's still not enough. I mean, you had the Celtics who had Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. They had guys for years. They add Porzingis. They add other guys. The Nuggets, right? You need that. You need everybody to be a threat and not just a threat where, oh, they got lucky. No, a threat to, you better not leave me or we're going to have some problems. So that's what I want to see from Keegan.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see something we didn't see on Monday. It felt like De'Aaron kind of, not that he took the night. I mean, he had the most shots of anybody in the game, but it just didn't. It felt like they were definitely trying really hard to get DeMar involved early, which I definitely appreciate. Again, you really want this preseason more so for any of the starters is about getting DeMar comfortable in the offense. All these guys have played together for the most part. I understand completely why you want DeMar to kind of get the nerves out, get the monkey off your back. Don't have the, oh man, I haven't been able to really get into my game and I'm only going to play, half of the first half or anything like that. So I understand why it was important to get DeMar going early, but I understand it's preseason and you want these guys to kind of take it easy a bit, but I want to see De'Aaron Fox, maybe just look a little bit more like the traditional point guard. It didn't really feel like he was setting up the offense much at all. And I know that's kind of the nature of the Kings offense, but didn't really feel like he was himself looking to get going. Took a couple mid-ranges. I'd like to see a little bit more of De'Aaron Fox have a nice night tonight. And then Keon Ellis. Keon only took 2 shots the other night, still had 4 assists. He was very involved. I saw some plus-minus numbers that he had that were really excellent, but only took 2 shots, didn't take a 3. I think that's going to be the thing throughout the season that we're going to just continue to monitor is how involved is Keon Ellis in the offense, and is he becoming not because he doesn't have the ability, but just because maybe the ball isn't going his way, is he really as involved as what he should be? I would just like to see Keon maybe be a little bit more involved in the offense, as we talked about earlier this week, with the shot distribution being so even. Sabonis 7 shots, DeRozan 6, Keegan 6, and Malik Monk had 7 as well. Keon Ellis only having 2. I understand somebody's got to sacrifice it, and it makes the most sense absolutely for it to be Keon. But I think if Keon's going to be in that starting lineup, I would like to see him have a little bit of an offensive role carved out for him. And again, I think some nights the ball's just not going to find his hand, obviously with DeMar and De'Aaron and Keegan and Sabonis being the focal point of that unit. But I would just kind of like to see what Keon looks like and how comfortable he feels with those guys out on the floor with him.
Yeah, great call. Keon, to me, everyone that was the DeMar DeRozan game. That's what it felt like. Let's get DeMar DeRozan going. So maybe we're not going to be able to see all these things, but that's why you know, much to my chagrin, you got 4 preseason games.
Got
so
one on Sunday.
You know what I mean? So you got one tonight, you got one on Sunday. So maybe when we get back on Monday, it was, hey, De'Aaron did his thing and took control. It was De'Aaron and Keegan on Friday.
Yep.
It was Keon and whoever else, Malik again on Sunday. We've seen what we need to see. I don't even want to, you know me, I don't even want to play DeMar DeRozan again, but that's not realistic. But I will say this, Chris, as we have Ward in the Sac Chat, our YouTube, if you're listening and want to find us on YouTube as well, hop on 1140 Sactown Sports on YouTube and join that community today. Some nice people in there. I will say this, as Ward is saying, if McDaniels doesn't play well tonight, I want to quit the experiment. And I responded to Ward and I said, they don't have a choice right now. Yeah. No Trey Lyles. Okay. You have no Trey Lyles, and they were thin to begin with. That's why the idea of Jalen McDaniels being the savior in that regard just wasn't really what anybody wanted to cook up. But you're going to see more Jalen McDaniels, and I'm hoping that we see something to make us feel better about the situation, Chris, because I know, you know, we can discuss trade deadline moves and things like that, but you never know what could actually happen there, especially when you're talking about a kind of a backup wing and that being overpriced because everything is inflation now on the court and off the court. So I just think it's an issue, and it would be much easier if we could just get what we need from that position from Jalen McDaniels. Am I asking too much? Maybe, probably. I've only seen him play a couple times, but it would be really nice if we could feel better about that position because, you know, Trey Lyles and that injury, if Trey's going to play some of the 5 as well, it would open up some things. I know we should not have crazy high expectations, but it would be nice. So that's not even, it's something I would like to see. Am I expecting to see it? Not really, but hopefully some type of improvement there.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen's going to be huge for this team for the short term, at least until Trey comes back. They need some forward depth, and Jalen at least has the size to get it done. He just needs to be a little bit productive on the offensive end and use his size like I know he knows how to. It's going to be big for him in the preseason. If he doesn't perform, that's what the preseason is for, is to get as much reps as possible so that he can at least be a usable piece of the rotation, hopefully by the time the season starts. The other thing that we didn't see that we really should look out for over the weekend is the offensive rebounding. Mike Brown talked about it, the new philosophy that this team has. They want to really attack the offensive glass. They only had 8 offensive rebounds in that first night against Golden State. Golden State only had 4. So at least they win the offensive rebounding battle, the extra possession battle. But at the same time, it feels like 8 isn't quite the number that Mike Brown was looking for. I'd like to see that number get around 12. If they can get 15 in a game, I mean, that's really where you're cooking and you're really damaging the other side. But can they get to double figures for offensive rebounds, I think is something that Mike Brown's probably going to look for every night from this team.
Coming up next, a fan favorite joins the Kings, albeit in Stockton. We'll tell you who it is when we return. Stiles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
The NFL.